Welcome to the Whiskey Vault. I'm Daniel Whittington. Why does Dry Week matter? Dry Week is for the Whiskey Tribe and the Whiskey Vault a chance to take a week off from drinking alcohol and sort of check in with yourself. But why? Why do we do that? Why does it matter? I'm going to tell you. I'm also going to drink W.L. Weller, the Special Reserve, the most accessible of the Wellers, as a gift from Brian Rand, one of our whiskey somms. So we originally created Dry Week. Let me switch this here. We originally created Dry Week in the early days of the Tribe Vault, really just Vault. I don't think Tribe existed yet. It was just the Vault channel. And it was after the discussion that we were definitely contributing aggressively to more people drinking whiskey in the world. And that it would be the conscientious and responsible thing to do to also use our platform to remind people that this is a substance that can be addictive and can cause a lot of damage in people's lives if abused. This has a special place in my world, these conversations, because my cousin was killed by a drunk driver when he was a teenager in 1998 or 7. And man, it's been a long time. I think it was 7, 8. And my aunt worked for MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. And so this is very serious to me. We drink a lot of whiskey shooting episodes, but we're really careful. If you look at the end of my pile of glasses at the end of an episode shoot where I shoot 4, you'll see about that much whiskey left in every glass that I dump out and we wash glasses. I have a breathalyzer in my office, in the tower, and at my house, just because I always want to know exactly where I am at, regardless of whether I feel fine or not. There are 2 terms in the world of alcohol dependency: problem drinking and alcoholism. And those are the 2 I just sort of wanted to reference. And get me, I understand the irony of doing a whiskey review and drinking whiskey while an entire episode of these 2 things, but we're still going to do it. Problem drinking is when you don't have a physical addiction dependence on alcohol as a chemical addiction. You have a psychological dependence on the effect of alcohol. And it becomes this crutch. Just because you're not physically addicted and you don't have withdrawal symptoms physically from not drinking doesn't mean that you don't have a mental dependency on alcohol. And that's what's considered problem drinkers. Problem drinkers can go weeks and even months without drinking if everything's fine in their life. But when they do drink, it creates problems, sometimes real big ones, right? Or they encounter problems and then they use a drink to not have to deal with it as clearly and blatantly. Now, a dry week is never going to clean that up for you. A problem drinker can take a dry week off to make themselves feel good that they don't have any problems and then go right back to problem drinking. So that's something that I'm just going to say out there in the world: be careful, right? Trust the people around you. Ask this question of the people around you. Honestly, do you think I have a problem with drinking? Not do you think I'm an alcoholic. If you're an alcoholic, you know. I guarantee you. You might be denying it, but you know, and so do the people around you. But problem drinking is a little grayer area, and you're less likely to notice it as quickly as the people who are closest to you in your life. So ask them and then be willing to hear what they have to say, and that's how you check in. Alcoholism is completely different. It is a true physical dependency. An alcoholic can't go without a drink for long periods of time, at least not until they've realized they've had a problem and they've taken active steps to create a sober life, right? But just generically, they physically need the alcohol in order to function. That's where you get into like detox programs and things like this. But my friends who are alcoholic, and I have a few, they will tell me that they've been, just because you're 20 years without whiskey doesn't mean you're not alcoholic. It just means you're an alcoholic who hasn't had a drink recently. That's a very different ballgame. Dry week can alert you to alcoholism because 7 days without alcohol for a true alcoholic is going to be a real issue. That's one of the reasons that we created these things. There's a few more that are softer and more gentle. Ironically, let's talk about W.O. Weller. We're going to keep it a little bit short because you all know this whiskey. But Weller is the same distillery that, as Buffalo Trace. And so Weller used to be, and still is in normal worlds, like a $30 bottle of whiskey-ish, or sometimes less, depending on where you got it. And then, right around the time we started this channel, to the late 90s, early 2000s, or mid-2000 teens, it was really more like 2010 to 15, somewhere in that window, Pappy Van Winkle blew up for real, like $4,000 bottles and stuff like that. And then there was this rumor around the whiskey nerd circles that Weller was the same whiskeys as Pappy. And so if you couldn't afford Pappy, you could just get Weller, and it was a poor man's Pappy Van Winkle, which is not quite accurate, but directionally, it's in the same flavor direction as the Pappy family because it's weeded and softer in the approach to barrel making. It's the same distillery. So that's when all of a sudden these bottles that should have only cost $30 started going for $100 and being allocated, which is insane. It's 45%. It's the weeded mash bill, which gives it that sort of softer approach. It is a great whiskey. This is a gift, as I said, from Brian Rand. It's not a $120 bottle of bourbon. I've seen those prices on the internet. Don't do it. Because it's substituted the wheat for the rye, it's got this soft cherry cream note layered across the typical dusty oak and tannin and vanilla. It still is, like, just as much as there was an aggressive reaction to loving this, there's been an aggressive reaction on it because the secondary market priced it absurdly. Well, even the retail market priced it absurdly. But the whiskey nerds need to remember, it is a good whiskey and it is owed its due. It's a solid, classic wheated bourbon. A little bit walnutty. Very soft vanilla cream, slight barrel dryness. This one, I always think that this whiskey, it completely disappears on the rocks. So I like it neat. But I have found it to be really good in certain bourbon-focused cocktails. Like a bourbon old-fashioned, it does really well. Weller does really well with that, especially if you add a little cherry. The orange tends to dominate it too much. An orange slice dominates it too much for me. But it's soft, it's pretty, it's a classic. It really is. Cheers. Okay. If you don't have a problem with alcohol dependency and problem drinking, and you don't have a problem with alcoholism, there's still a good reason to stop and take a break from whiskey, in my mind. And that is, it's always good to take breaks from things, right? And just take a breather. Come back to it with fresh eyes. A week is bare minimum to do that. I have found that I get way more fresh eyes if I do 2 weeks. 1 week, sometimes. I definitely look forward to it after a week. I'm like, it's like getting to have ice cream again after going on a diet, right? Or it's like, I just finished this 2-week workout diet thing and now I get to go have a cheeseburger. It's like, yeah, I look forward to that pour of whiskey after that. I have found that it makes me a little more aware of certain flavors that have become kind of invisible. I used to get real bored by Speyside Scotch. It was after a dry week period that I came back and I tried a generic Speyside as a part of our review and immediately was like, holy cow, there's way more going on in here than I realized recently. And then sure enough, if I go back drinking every day or every other day and come back to those, it takes me a little bit to get back into that subtlety and nuance. So there's still a good reason to take a break from it. I wouldn't classify them as the primary reason, but they are fringe benefits of a good dry week. I would hate for anyone in this community going on a path of true danger and dependency, but it's happened, and we've had people in this community who said, hey, drinking with you guys and then taking a dry week made me realize that I have an issue and I'm going to take a break. And some of them have left the community because it was just too complicated to watch our videos and avoid drinking. And I get that, and we're sorry to lose them, but it's for the right reasons and all the right purposes. Fair? So I hope that clarifies why we do this every single quarter. And I hope that you're well, and I'm really glad you're here. Cheers. Don't forget, tomorrow is the beginning of the Whiskey Vault Quarterly Dry Week. It starts at noon, Friday, February 21st, and goes through Friday, February 28th. This is our chance to check in, make sure we're all good, take a break from alcohol for a week, and I'll see you on the other side.